Good evening from New York, I'm Chris Hayes. There are secret police operating on the streets of an American city under the direction of the president. And in the past week, they have been recorded snatching a protester off the street and forcing him into an unmarked car and shooting another peaceful protester with a non-lethal round in the head. This is all happening in Portland, Oregon, where on Saturday night, a 26-year-old protester named Donovan Labella was standing across the street from unidentified federal officers holding nothing but a speaker. Just standing there. He rolled away a canister thrown in his direction, and then this happened. The reason you see him collapse there, Donovan Labella, was because he was shot in the head with a round meant to be non-lethal. His fellow protester carried him away as his blood pooled on the ground. His mother said his face and skull were fractured and that he finished facial reconstructive surgery early Sunday morning. He still has a tube in his skull to drain the blood, she told the Oregonian on Sunday. The shot into his head was fired by the federal agents that the president deployed to the streets of Portland against the wishes of the mayor and the governor. These agents have been driving unmarked vehicles and tear-gassing protesters while refusing to identify themselves. Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden tweeting, a peaceful protester in Portland was shot in the head by one of Donald Trump's secret police. Now Trump and Chad Wolf are weaponizing the Department of Homeland Security as their own occupying army to provoke violence on the streets of my hometown because they think it plays well with right-wing media. The guy that Senator Wyden mentioned there, Chad Wolf, he is the acting Secretary of Homeland Security. To justify what Donald Trump is doing, he tweeted out images of himself viewing graffiti that had been put on buildings in Portland. And the DHS put out a statement pointing to the buildings. It said had been graffitied by, quote, violent anarchists. Listen to how he explained it on Trump TV last night.
We need to make sure that we're supporting our law enforcement officers here and making sure that they're going to continue to protect the federal courthouse here. That's what the DHS does. That's our mission. We're not going to abdicate our mission, our responsibilities. However, whatever the local leadership here is telling us.
So the mission of the Department of Homeland Security is to deploy secret police to the streets of American City to stop graffiti and some light property damage. And as part of that mission, to protect the federal courthouse, they apparently also need to abduct people as well.
What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What is going on? Who are you? NLG will get you out. What's your name? Tell us your name. Okay, you're fine. We'll get you out. We got you, friend.
We got you. NLG.
You just violated their rights.
Kidnapping.
You just violated their rights.
Yeah, kidnapping, snatching them off the streets, stuffing them into unmarked vans in America. That is just one of a number of videos and accounts out of Portland of unidentified federal officials just plucking people off the street and driving away. Just like that. One came from a 29-year-old named Mark Pettibone, who said that when he was abducted, he did not know if the men were even police. He thought they might be far-right extremists. I was terrified, he told the Washington Post. It seemed like it was out of a horror sci-fi, like a Philip K. Dick novel. It was like being preyed upon. After a terrifying car ride, in which his hat was pulled down over his head so he could not see, he was put in a cell in what he later learned was a federal courthouse. He was later released without any record of why he had been picked up in the first place. The DHS put out a defensive statement claiming that he had been suspected of either assault or vandalism. They were not sure which. Vandalism. DHS is patrolling vandalism, the agency after 9/11, the created after 9/11. They're going after vandals? Really? Let's be very clear here. This kind of armed federal presence does not help anyone. That is why local officials do not want it. These men, in their camo, with their guns and their riot gear, they are not calming things down in Portland. They are not bringing order to Portland. They are making things in Portland worse They are provoking people and violating their rights, which is precisely why Sean Hannity led his show with images of alleged violence as a way to distract and desperately try to convince people to think about anything other than the once-in-a-century catastrophe that Donald Trump has ushered in. Do you remember when the President and Attorney General William Barr had police violently expel protesters, peaceful protesters, Lafayette Park, right near the White House, so that Donald Trump could have that ridiculous photo op at the church? That was reportedly ordered in part because, and I quote here, Barr was concerned about graffiti on the Treasury Department headquarters. Graffiti. Federal officers in riot shields with guns and tear gas and batons being deployed because someone tagged a wall. And now it's the same excuse they're using in Portland. And remember, after a secret police cleared a path, Donald Trump strolled past that graffiti in Lafayette Park for a pathetic photo, awkwardly holding a Bible meant to boost his political stand. Well, this is the same thing all over again. The president has authorized the occupation of a major American city in an attempt to create a propaganda victory for right-wing media. They are performing fascism for the base, only they're not just performing. They are really doing it. They are literally abducting people. Because the only trick they seem to have left, as Trump slides further and further behind the polls, as the virus rages across the country, is to lay waste to the rule of law. And whether it is grabbing people off the streets and stuffing them into unmarked vans, or trying to stop mail-in voting, or calling into question the very legitimacy of the election, or pardoning his crooked friends and co-conspirators, it is a full-scale assault on the very pillars of liberal democracy as re-election strategy. Joining me now is Oregon Governor Kate Brown, who's asked the federal government to remove these unmarked agents from the streets of Portland. And Governor, thank you for joining me tonight. I want to just say that I am confused about this situation. I have been reading reporting on it all day. What is your understanding of what is going on in your state right now?
That's a great question. We are certainly facing challenges with COVID-19, and I've asked the federal government for help, both in terms of testing supplies and financial resources. We have citizens across the state that have been very hard hit by this virus, and we can't get either the financial support or the medical help that we need. Instead, the federal government chooses to deploy troopers on our streets, as you mentioned, which is purely political theater. It's not about public safety, and it's certainly not about problem solving.
Well, just detail-wise, did Chad Wolf from DHS, did anyone call up you or any of your staff to say, Governor, we're sending a bunch of folks out into the streets. They might be shooting non-lethal rounds at some Oregonians. They might be tear gassing some of them. Just a heads up, would you like us to do this? Like, what, is there been communication, or are you just watching this happen?
That's a really great question. I got a call from Secretary Wolf on Tuesday. As you are well aware, that was several days after they'd already almost killed a young man, a peaceful protester in Portland. And the conversation I had with him was very, very clear. Remove your federal officers from the streets of Portland. You are escalating an already challenging situation. And frankly, in Oregon, we solve problems by de-escalating and dialoguing. This is a total and complete distraction from the Trump's administration failure to lead a national COVID-19 response.
I saw reporting that some of these officers, federal officers, are CBP, Customs Border Protection. And I know this is going to sound sort of snarky, but I want to say it for the record, like, Portland's not on the border, right?
Well, you know your geography well, probably better than a lot of vice presidential candidates in certain parties. But yes, we know that there are federal officials. As you mentioned, they are driving unmarked cars. Media reports tell me that they literally are renting vehicles from local rental agencies. But I asked them to go home. The mayor has asked them to go home. Our congressional delegation has asked them to go home. And if not, I asked them to comply with the same restrictions that the Portland Police Bureau is under. The federal courts have placed restrictions on the City of Portland Police Force in terms of their use of force. Federal officials should be required to comply with these absolute same restrictions. Americans ought to be outraged, and Oregonians are. This is absolutely unacceptable. This was purely a photo opportunity for political theater for the Trump administration. He is trying to distract. If they were trying to problem solve, they would have called us and said, let's have a conversation. Let's work collaboratively to tackle these issues. They're not interested in problem solving. They only want to escalate. They want to dominate the streets, and they want to score political points with their base.
Yeah, you wrote that Trump is looking for a confrontation in Oregon in hopes of winning political points in Ohio or Iowa, your state, a kind of theater backdrop for the president, of course, but there's real people there, and there's a real young man who really had facial reconstructive surgery and really had his blood pool on the street after he was really shot with a non-lethal round by a federal official who he doesn't know what, to this day, we don't know what entity he came from. I mean, one question I have for you and for the citizens of your state, if two men come up to me with guns in camouflage and grab me to put me in a car, I'm not going with them. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're people that just bought camouflage in a store and a police badge and have a gun. I don't know what authority they have.
This is terrifying for the citizens of the city of Portland and surrounding communities. Obviously, it is definitely like pouring gasoline on a fire. This is not how we solve problems in my state, and it's absolutely unacceptable. The circumstance you just showed, complete violation of civil rights and a violation of our Constitution. Certainly, federal law enforcement officials should be forced to abide by these at the very least.
Governor Kate Brown of the state of Oregon, as you can tell, she has been asking the federal officers who have been deployed to her state onto the streets to leave. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Be safe.
Try. I want to bring now in Senator Jeff Merkley, who's Democrat of Oregon, who tweeted at the president earlier, get your DHS lackey and uninvited paramilitary actions out of my state. Our communities are not a stage for your twisted re-election campaign. And Senator, I want to talk about the legality here and oversight. So we have some news on that front. The ACLU has already sued the Portland police, the local police, and I would just note that that Portland Police Department has had some real excesses, and there's a reason that they're under federal constraint in terms of what kind of use of force they can have. But the judge has now said the ACLU can add federal agencies to it, and a U.S. attorney for Oregon in the Justice Department has called for investigation into those protester arrests. Is that enough, or does more have to be done to figure out what the heck is going on here?
Well, more has to be done. I mean, every American should be offended at what they have seen tonight. Actually terrified. Trump is using these federal forces as a personal paramilitary force. That is what dictators do. That is not what presidents of a democratic republic do. And I can tell you that we pursued this question of who are these people. And I talked to the U.S. Marshal's office. They said no, that they were marked. And then it appeared that these folks were Customs and Border Protection agents, and they were the ones sweeping people off the street. And we got a reply from Mark Morgan. Mark Morgan, the commissioner for CBP, he says, no, they were clearly marked as federal law enforcement officers. But when you see those pictures, you see the word police. That's it. Were they Portland police? Were they someone who just, as you said, bought some camouflage and some police badge? Mark Pettibone, who you referred to, he said he was terrified. He knew that some of the white power extremists have come to try to harass protesters in Oregon. And what's going through his mind was, well, could this be these extremists are taking me, are kidnapping me? I think it's absolutely unacceptable to have unmarked, this is like stormtroopers. This is completely unacceptable. There's no accountability if you don't know who people are. And now our federal government is lying to us, not coming clean. I met with them about what were the rules of engagement. Who were the decision makers about what weapons would be carried and what tactics would be used. They said, oh, it's all in some book somewhere. We have protocols. Well, you have protocols for different places. You make decisions. Who makes those decisions? Who coaches the team before they go on the street? Oh no, it's all in a book somewhere. There are absolutely no transparency. The term secret police or personal presidential paramilitary force seems appropriate. And then look what they're doing. Grabbing somebody who left a peaceful protest, was walking back to his car, sweeping him into a van, throwing him into a prison cell, later releasing him, never telling him who they were or why he was stopped. Again, this is unacceptable in America.
I have to say that in my career covering politics, I have heard countless lectures from conservatives and Republicans about federalism, states' rights, local control, the federal government. We want the federal government coming in and telling us what to do. I just don't understand why is this the DHS's business in any way, shape, or form, or CBP, whoever graffitied a wall, whether they were anarchists or not. We have local law enforcement in this country. The DHS doesn't run around arresting everyone who graffiti something. There just seems like no actual grounding for this other than the president wants a show of force.
Well, we certainly in Portland have had conflicts between white extremists and others who are protesting, and the city commission and the mayor and the police chief and teams have tried to figure out how to keep them separated, keep them from being violent exchanges, and stop any form of destruction. And it is not always easy, but it gets much harder when you have unidentified agents coming in using impact munitions, shooting a peaceful protester in the head. So I asked about the rules of engagement. I said, do you have rules that say you can shoot somebody in the head with these impact munitions, rubber bullets, or something of that nature? They said, well, we have rules. Will you get me a copy? No, they won't get me a copy. Well, they'll think about getting me a copy. I said, we don't have rules like if we use these, we only use them if we're endangered. We never shoot above the chest. It's absolutely, the governor had it right. It pours gasoline on this fire and this tension. So here we have everyone working to de-escalate, to end any form of violence or property destruction, and the federal stormtroopers, Trump's personal paramilitary force, coming in here in a secret police style, just making everything so much worse. He has to get them home. It does seem like, from a legal point of view, that this type of unidentified sweeping people off the street, no probable cause, is a violation of civil rights. And what president would we expect that from? President Trump.
Yeah, it's intolerable. Folks should go read about how the founding fathers felt about this kind of policing action. They were not very, very supportive. In fact, it's part of the revolution. Senator Jeff Merkley of the state of Oregon, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you.